Cool, refreshing water. You need it, I need it, we all need it. And also, our acoustic guitars need it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Paulie G Show, coming to you live from high atop Mount Georgia. Happy holiday season 2023. It's great to be with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as we come into the holiday season, for a lot of us, the climate is changing. It's getting colder and the air is getting drier. So this is something of a public service announcement to talk a little bit about the importance of humidifying our acoustic guitars. And I think it's something that there may be a lot of, maybe misconceptions about or misunderstandings about, or people just don't know maybe how important it is. But it is very, very important, especially in the seasons where it's in colder climates and the humidity in the air from your heating system, or whether it's just the humidity from the general air outside, can get very, very low and dry. And that is very, very bad for acoustic guitars. So I want to talk a little bit about how I, humidify my guitars and how I monitor that activity. And I hope it'll help you understand a little bit about it. And if anything, if nothing else, just really drive home the importance of, humidifying your guitars, because I'd really hate to see you have a really, really nice guitar and have it crack. And it can happen very easily, believe me. So I guess I'll start by talking a little bit about what's the right environment. So I always kind of describe it this way. Guitars like what we like as human beings. Ideally for us, 70 degrees, maybe 72 degrees, and about 50% humidity. That's a nice environment for us overall. Some might like it a little warmer, some a little cooler. But in general terms, that's where we as human beings, feel fairly comfortable, I think. And guitars are pretty much in that same, boat. That's what they like. So I start by monitoring the humidity around my house in several rooms, and I do so by the use of these small hygrometers that are very inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon for, I don't know, probably no more than about $8 or $10 a piece. And I have them in various points in my house. So I always know, in general terms, what the humidity level is at any given point. So that tells me whether or not I can leave a guitar out in the living room, for example, for a while, or whether if it's very, very dry, I'm going to play it and I'm going to return it to its case very, very quickly, because I don't want it exposed to really low humidity for very long. Now, the opposite of that is if the humidity is very high in the summer. I live in the Northeast, and sometimes the humidity can get very, very high. And you need to monitor that as well, but that's kind of a different, subject. Today we're talking about, winter stuff and drying guitars. So I use these to monitor and see how we're doing with humidity. And I see, for example, right now I'm at about 65 degrees and 52% humidity, which is that's a good zone for a guitar. And I wouldn't worry too much about leaving a guitar out in that environment for, an extended period of time. And by that, I mean maybe a couple of days or multiple hours. But I'll monitor that very, very closely. Another really, really key point, I think, is the necessity of a hard shell case. You really can't successfully humidify a guitar, in my opinion, in a gig bag. So, if you have a guitar that you really value, that you really like, and you want it to last a long time, really consider getting a hard shell case for it, especially to store in, the winter months, because that's really going to help that guitar last a lot longer than you might otherwise experience in a gig bag. For example, I have a friend who had a really, really nice Martin guitar and got it from his dad, and they kept it in a gig bag for some reason. I'm not really sure why. I don't know what became of the original case, but he took it over to my house one day to ask me to take a look at it and maybe do a setup. I opened up the case, and there were 3 giant cracks in the top. Not one, but 3. So the guitar was almost really destroyed, and this was a really nice Martin guitar. This Martin that I have here is 33 years old, and for 20 years, I never even played this guitar because I didn't play guitar. It stayed under my bed, but the reason that it is in absolute pristine condition, or part of that reason, is I always kept it in the hard shell case, and I kept it humidified in the winter. And I attribute that to, a big reason why this guitar is in such great shape. And it really is in showroom condition as a result of that. George Gruen, who I consider to be really the foremost authority on, acoustic guitars or guitars in general, says that a well cared for acoustic guitar could last up to 300 years. And I'm in no position to disagree with that, but I won't be seeing my guitars for that long in time, and I want them to live, long past my life and pass them along. So I want them to be in the best condition they can be, and one of the ways to do that is to humidify it, because we have a finish on the outside, right? There's a lacquer or a polyurethane finish, but on the inside of what we call the box, that's all exposed wood, and that's where the dryness is going to occur and ultimately could result in cracking. So there's a few different methods that I apply depending on how often I use the guitar or other circumstances, the level of quality that I use to humidify my guitars. And what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through a little bit of 3 different methods that I'm aware of that are, I'll start with like a baseline, like the minimum you should do, then maybe a next level up, and then the ultimate, that I use for my super high-end guitars. So let's get started with that, and we'll take a look and see what I can show you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just give a little bit of a demonstration of a few different methods of humidifying the guitar. And as I mentioned in the last introduction there, that we want to be around 50% humidity. That's ideal. But the real range for a guitar, that's like the comfort zone, is between 40 and 60%. Anywhere below 40, I've seen it for example, in my home. I live in the Northeast, and in the winter, between the furnace running and just, with it being very, very cold at times, I've seen the humidity get down into the teens in my house. And man, that's really, really dangerous for an acoustic guitar. So I would never keep a guitar out in that environment for very long. I'll play one, but I'll return it to the case immediately and get it, humidified. So 40 to 60% is a good zone. You can go above that in the summer. That's kind of risky too, and we'll talk about that maybe when the summer rolls around and how we can kind of manage that. But for now, we'll talk about dryness and the risk of dryness. And the first one I want to demonstrate, some of you have probably seen these. They're very, very common. This, for example, is a Planet Waves. There's other brands, but what we have is basically a plastic case, and within that is a very, very small sponge that you moisten, and then you place the sponge in the case, and then this gets inserted in between the strings, and obviously you close the hard shell case, keeping the case in a flat position, lying down. That's very important. You don't want a case standing on its side with one of these in it. And you want to be very, very careful not to over moisten the sponge, because you don't want water dripping out of these holes that are designed to emit humidity but not water, because when you start dripping water directly onto that open wood on your guitar, that's really not a good thing to have happen. So make sure that you moisten it to the most that you can, but make sure that also that it's not dripping, right? So one other point I'll make about these sponges is, depending on where you live, you may not want to use your tap water to do this. My tap water is pretty good. There's not a lot of mineral content in it, but if you live, for example, in a place where there's hard water or other issues like that, you could run the risk of the sponges. They after a while they'll start to crystallize and degrade from all the minerals, and they just won't work optimally. You'll end up having to throw them out and replace them. So what I do is, I don't know how many years ago I bought this gallon of distilled water. So next time you're in your supermarket, you can get a gallon of distilled water. It'll probably cost you no more than $2 or $3, and it'll last you a very, very long time, I promise you. But this distilled water doesn't have any minerals in it. It's now been those have all been removed, so that'll protect the sponges a lot longer. So anyway, that's the process for using this, and I want to just do a quick demonstration for you right here and show you how I insert this into the guitar and keep them humidified. So here we go. Okay, so we've got our Planet Waves humidifier system here, and we've got our distilled water. I'm going to go ahead and get this sponge nice and moist. I'm going to wring it out a little bit, make sure that we're not dripping. We'll go ahead and place it into the plastic housing. You'll see it's got the vent holes here on each side to humidify the guitar. Place on the lid, and then I just like to give it one last wipe to make sure that we're not dripping. We'll go ahead and insert it in between the strings, close up the case, and ready for bed. Okay, so there's a little demonstration on how to use this Planet Waves humidifier. Again, I would consider this to be like just absolute, baseline, because these sponges will dry out pretty quickly, and if you're anything like me, you're going to be running around the house opening up cases if you have multiple guitars, and constantly checking these, because in the really, really dry seasons, these sponges will probably dry out within a week or so. So you'll really have to check on them pretty regularly, because especially if your guitar is dry, it's going to absorb that moisture really, really quickly. So it's not optimal, but definitely better than nothing. So that's a good starting point. Next up, I want to talk about what I'll call like next level, slightly better than this version, and that's these Dampit coils. And basically what we have is another sponge kind of device where you pre-soak it, and then you hang it by this clip on the guitar strings. Case closed, flat. Again, case has to be lying down. You don't want these things dangling on a case that's standing on its side, because you could drip water and have a lot of problems associated with that. And another thing I want to point out with these in particular is you really, really want to make sure that after you moisten them, you wring them out pretty well, because I've had even times when I try to use it where I go to hang it and I see that it's starting to drip water onto the open wood of the guitar, and you really don't want to have that happen. That could really be a big problem. So if you're going to use these, and you can use multiples of these in the guitar if you really want to. You can hang 2 or 3 of them in there. but you want to make sure that they're not dripping. So be very, very careful about that, because you don't want open water dripping on the guitar. So these are a little bit better, I would say, and I'll demonstrate here on how I use these. So here we go. Okay, now here we have the Dampit sponge system, and it's really the same process more or less. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good soaking in the distilled water that I use. With these, I really want to be very careful that they're not dripping, because it has a lot of vent holes, and inside all of this is the sponge. And I really want to make sure that it's not going to be dripping into the guitar, so I'll go ahead and really kind of wipe it down as best I can and give it a good look over and make sure that it's not dripping, even if I bend it. So this looks pretty good. I feel like I can go ahead and insert it into the guitar at this point. So we'll go ahead and drop that into the box, and then just attach it to a string, any string. You can use 2 of these, 3 of these if you think you need that many, if your guitar is particularly dry. But the process would be the same. Go ahead and close up the case and seal it up. And there you go. All that humidity is going to dissipate just as it's needed. Okay, so there you have it. That's how we use the Dampit sponge system in our guitars. And then what I want to talk about now is what I consider to be really the ultimate method of humidifying. And this is what I use on all my like really high-end guitars, and especially guitars that I'm not going to take out and play all that often, that are going to be in the case for extended periods of time. And that's the Dampit Humidipack. And what we have here are essentially these gel packs that are interesting in that they are sort of self-regulating. They either emit humidity or absorb humidity depending on the environment, and they're designed to keep the area around them at around 50% humidity. So they're absolutely ideal for this purpose. And what you do is you've got this sleeve that holds 2 pouches, and then you'll hang this between the strings, case closed, case flat, always not standing on its side. And these will last a really long time in in that environment. I'll put a fresh pack in at the beginning of the winter season, and I'm getting ready to do that now. And they'll last at least 6 months, if not more. Sometimes they've lasted up to a year, depending on how good of a case they're in terms of the seal and everything. But they're really, really great in that they regulate themselves, and they keep the guitar perfectly humidified for really, really long periods of time. This is the top of the line. It's not cheap. It's a little bit more expensive proposition. I think a new set is around $30, and then the refill packs are around $20. But again, you don't have to do it that often, and it saves you a lot of hassle in terms of having to go around and refill these sponges with water all the time. It's kind of a set it and forget it situation. So I really love these a lot, and I use them a great deal. This is the ultimate way. So hard shell case, humidipacks, you're going to be really safe in terms of the environment. So this is what I recommend if you've got a guitar that you really value. That's really what I recommend you using, especially in the winter. And these work in the summer too, to regulate over humidity. But we'll talk about that in the summertime, which will probably be here before you know it, the way time's flying. So these are my systems, and this is what I use across virtually all my acoustics. I don't worry too much about electric guitars as far as humidity. I know some people do, but I focus. I've got enough work to do keeping the acoustics humidified. So, anyway, this is what I'm using, and I hope this is helping you. Okay, here we have what I think is the best of all humidifying systems for your guitar, and that's the Dario Humidipack system. So here we have our gel packs and our sleeve. There's no moistening required. These gel packs are already moist inside, and they will control their release of moisture as needed inside the guitar or whatever environment they're in. You don't want to leave these out laying around because they'll dry out in the ambient environment. So they'll come in a sealed container, and then you want to use them as quickly as possible and get them into your guitar. So simply insert them in the sleeve. Go ahead and hang them in between the strings like so, and that's really it. It couldn't be any more simple. It'll go ahead and emit humidity as needed, or if the guitar doesn't need it, it won't do it. So it keeps it at more or less a perfect 50% humidity, and of course keeping the case closed at all times. If you want to play the guitar, of course, just open it up, remove them, put it back when you're done. And again, these gel packs will last all through the season and keep your guitar super healthy through the winter. So there you go. Okay, so there you go. Those are my methods for keeping my guitars safe and humid in the winter months. And I really just wanted to pass along the information and hopefully, inspire you to, look into this if you haven't been doing it. Or if you have, some suggestions, better methods, or how you do it, I'd love for you to comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on the subject. But most importantly, I just wanted to, hopefully inspire you to look into it and start to consider it if it's not something that you're doing already. Because I'd really hate for you to have a beautiful guitar that you cherish and have it crack because of lack of humidity. Cracks are expensive to repair, and really, almost more importantly, they really devalue the guitar. If you ever, you can have it repaired, but if and when you ever go to sell the guitar, it's always going to be, kind of a bone of contention with the buyer. I know for me, I don't know that I've ever really bought a guitar that had a crack repair. To me, that would be an indication that the guitar was really poorly maintained. So that would be a red flag, in and of itself, right? So yeah, I hope that inspires you to do it. These are the methods I've been using, and knock on wood, I haven't had a guitar crack on me yet, so I'm sticking with it. But anyway, I hope this information is helpful to you, and I want to wish you a really happy holiday season. I'll be definitely making some more content in the coming weeks. But until next time, this is Paulie G reminding you that when it comes to guitars, keep them humidified. See you next time.